I would say that, and I would borrow from the current competence-based education system that we have, that we should not really classify learners or trainees or students based on failure or those who succeed because of what they attain in their KCSE grading, whether to qualify for university, so that the notion has been, which is a wrong notion, that when you don't pass and attain the threshold to join the university, then you are considered a failure. That's not the case, and I will give a few reasons why that is really not the case. And so we should desist from classifying learners in terms of successful, those who go to university, failures, those who don't make it to the university. When you look at the education system, and this is where I will go into the details, is that obviously there is a normal curve first in every performance. And the performance at the Form 4 or O level is meant to, of course, classify learners, but it may not be as objective as the current competence-based education, where you look at the individual capability and potential and assess them based on that, and enable them grow their potential. The current system is a blanket assessment where whether you are good in biology or STEM, or whether you are good in arts, you still have to be examined on all of them, and you still either have to pass, therefore be declared successful, or you fail because you did not make it to the university. Therefore, that system of assessment is purely knowledge-based. It depends on your ability to memorize content, or on your ability to, understand concepts across the board. Yet, we know that as human beings, we are unique. We have our different abilities. Some are good in, some saying STEM programs, some are good in arts. And so nobody should be denied an opportunity, especially to a livelihood or to a career, simply because we assessed them on certain variables or parameters that didn't seem to favor their potential. So what I want to say is that for anybody who did not make it to the university, I want to explain 1, 2, 3 issues that make them not failures. The number one, I will talk about the TVET, because of course everybody is telling these young people, join TVET. Even myself, that's what I'm advocating for. But what are the real reasons behind our conversation about TVET, and why are we insisting that these young people have not failed in life? They have just possibly not attained what they desired at that level. Number one is what I classify as the trichotomous nature of TVET programs. What I mean by that is that when you join a TVET institution, you have 3 expected outcomes. Number one, you can employ yourself. In fact, you can employ yourself and employ others. Look at a student who studies, for example, hospitality. They are very good in pastries and bakery. You walk around town, you find businesses, even very small stalls, with only those as pastries and bakery. Then that means this person with the skill can easily employ themselves. And of course, with the demand, when the business grows, they can even employ others to support the business. Therefore, that is to say that this skill that is acquired at the TVET level is not just meant for somebody to go draft a CV and start looking for a job. If there is a way, a mechanism, or whether through the parents or any other such organization, these young people who graduate with these skills can be empowered, they could easily start their own businesses. In the same line, even as an institution, we are now setting up a business incubation center where we shall be also guiding these young people, especially on business management, because you could be qualifying as a very good expert in pastries, but you don't know how to run accounts. So we want to set up this incubation center, which would be enabling them to gain some bit of business skills on how to run a business, so that also we reduce the failure rate of startups, because startups, of course, have a lot of challenges, and that's where we want to also work with industry and experts to prepare our graduates properly for that route. That's number one. Number two, of course, people get employed. Most of them, they exit and they also get themselves employment in their respective career areas or industry. And that is still another option. And just to talk about possibly why also talk about employment, because then the reason maybe these young people want to go to the universities because they believe that with a degree certificate, then you are very easily likely to get yourself a job. But of course, we are in this country and we have seen the levels of unemployment. We have also seen, even graduates coming out and declaring their certificates null and void at their personal level because they feel 5 years down the line they have never gotten a job. Some have even, burnt up their certificates because they feel a lot of frustration because of lack of jobs. But then why could that be also the case? Look at the pyramid nature of organizations in terms of the organogram or the organization structure. Ideally, universities or degree level education should prepare or produce supervisors, meaning these are people who should come and start programs like what we regularly refer to as graduate management trainees. These are people who should come to organizations, whether in government or private sector, to start a program in their career of eventually growing to managers. Now, that level is not in the bottom of the pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is where we require a lot of clerks, artisans, and other level of staff like that. These are not degree holders. So when you look at the employment, you will find that there is a CEO in just any typical organization. That's why I'm classifying it as a pyramid nature. You will find the CEO is just one. Then you go down, you will find maybe a few managers. Then you move a bit lower, you find some leaders or supervisors, a number of them. And by the time you are at the people who are really the producers, assuming it's in a manufacturing company, that's where you find the thousands. And these thousands are the ones we are producing in TVET. These are now the people with the technical skills. So when you look at the opportunities available for this person from the university who is supposed to join management trainee and become a manager, or that level of management later, against this person who is graduating from a TVET institution, who's supposed to start from the very bottom as they move up career-wise, you find that the opportunities that exist in a typical situation in organizations are much more for the TVET graduate than the degree holder. Number 3 in the trichotomy I was talking about is progression. We are all aware that under the Kenya National Qualifications Framework and therefore the authority, you could start with any level, whether in the formal system where we are artisan or the levels as classified under the KNQA, and be able to move up in the academic journey all the way to becoming a PhD holder. Now, what happens at this level? There is no barrier to how much you can achieve if you start from whatever point you start. However, there is a key important issue I need to mention there, and I usually give this example a lot. Sometimes you will find that the skill level of a person, when I compare one-on-one, assuming we have a doctor, a PhD holder in automotive engineering, who started his level of study at the degree level, and we have a PhD holder, a doctor, still in the same profession, automotive engineering, who began their studies at certificate level. These two you may not necessarily compare Why? Because of what I refer to as the accumulation of knowledge and skills. Because this person who went straight to the degree level, because of the expectation of the education system and the career path of them becoming a supervisor, they would not be taught some bit and a lot of content that is meant to be undertaken, or the skills that are supposed to be implemented by the lower level, because they are expected naturally that they are going to supervise these lower people. However, this lower person, who is the artisan or the certificate or the diploma, will study the hands-on skill. And therefore, as they grow, you have acquired the level of certificate, a lot of skills learning. Then you move to diploma, a lot of skills again. So by the time you become, for example, a master's holder or the doctorate, I'm giving an example of, you have acquired and amassed a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge. Therefore, it means that if we were to weigh the two people, one who began at degree and the one who began at certificate, when they are at the apex, both of them, this one who began at the certificate level can almost perform all functions of the career, unlike the one who began at the degree level, because of the starting expectations. They were totally different. This one was expected to know a lot. The other one was expected to know, yes, but more of management. Therefore, it is a very good thing, I would say so, that somebody does not think they are failures, because you can see that path is still open. It might take a while, but you see, when you are progressing your studies, having acquired the certificate and the diploma, you do not have to go on studying non-stop. You will go into your employment, or you will be running your business, and you go on studying. I mean, these days there are a lot of options of studying online, studying part-time, and so there is no barrier, there is no bottleneck to how much you can study, especially when you get into employment or you are self-employed and you have some income. So that is the trichotomous nature I was explaining about TVET.
Yeah, there's an issue that you have raised, which is a lack of employment, especially to those who maybe they're thinking most after university I go for a white-collar job, and they miss it. Now, the way the country is you employ yourself. Do you think now is TVET, the study, the learning that is given to...
We always argue, as KIPS, we are a member and an official of the Kenya National Association of Private Colleges. That's the umbrella body of private colleges in the country. And actually, we have been in very constant touch with the government agencies, especially HELP, and now, of course, renamed the Universities and Colleges Funding Body, to look at the student as a student and not a private student or a public student, because at the end of the day, these two students get the same qualification. If you study with us under TVET, SIDAC, or NEC, or any other examining body, I mean, you are a civil engineer, the diploma does not come from the institution. All TVET students are assessed externally and are qualified and awarded those certifications externally, whether you are in a private or a public TVET. So in that sense, therefore, it means that really there is no differentiation that you went to a public or a private TVET, because what will appear in your certificate is a diploma from TVET, SIDAC, or a diploma from NEC. And therefore, of course, government, yes, has the institutions, but it may also not accommodate all of them, and maybe some may not be at the convenience of the students. It could actually also make possibly the cost of the student operations for some of the categories of students more expensive, especially where some students have to relocate from their home area, and that's where partly the private TVETs come in, because most likely you will find that most of the private TVETs are more day schooling or day learning institutions. So most of these learners will come from home, study home, back home. And so we are in touch, yes, with the funding body for universities and colleges. We've been having an engagement for many years now, and we hope that we live to see a day when this student in the TVET institution is not to be considered private or public, and therefore treated or classified differently so that the treatment is not the same. We are under one body, the TVET authority. So just the same way a public TVET will be approved by the TVET authority, the same parameters are applied to us. So there is no private TVET operating as a private TVET independently without proper approval. And therefore, I see that really there is no need not to fund these students. However, I can also mention that, of course, as private TVETs, we also look at then how do we make it easier for this learner or for this trainee at TVET, we call them trainees, who wants, yes, to study with us, possibly because they have looked at, for example, KIPS, and they find that there are some aspects of our operations they desire and are happy about, and yet maybe they are not going to receive this funding in the meantime before any, such funding facility or can be availed. When we look at our fees, most of the private TVETs is very, very low. In fact, maybe keenly looking at it, some people may wonder, is this even viable? Do people manage to, foot their bills and still be able to deliver quality? We ride on numbers, so we charge very little amounts. We even allow students to pay in installments, possibly even monthly. And I know other institutions could even do much smaller installments, including ourselves. A student comes here, pays some small amount, they will be allowed to go to class for a week, for 3, 4, 5 days, then they continue. So we walk the journey of learning or training with the student. So that, and the parent, of course, because the parent is usually heavily involved in the fees payment. So we make the environment, especially that aspect of fees payment, not become very complex and not to become very difficult, so that it even becomes a bottleneck. So ideally, when you compare the fees we charge against even what government TVETs charge, is possibly we are cheaper as much as we are private TVET because of how we run the system. And of course, the other students, of course, in public TVETs will still have a burden of a loan to pay later, but maybe for ours, because of the low figures, if the parents can afford, then that burden is already removed from them. However, we are also working, of course, for those very neat cases, like an institution like ourselves. We have the body called Chansen and other bodies that are willing actually to support or to loan students in also private TVETs. We have made quite some progress, and so soon we hope that we shall be also availing a facility where even students in our institution can also access some bit of loans to be able to support their education. Of course, this also usually happens, especially in a case where there is a change of the setup, possibly in the family, or a student joins us, then there is maybe a demise of a parent, or the sponsor stops sponsoring the student for whatever reason. So for such cases, we have also been working on the mechanisms to ensure that these students don't drop, because then when they drop, and then that's where their dreams, more or less for career and other such dreams come to a halt.
As we finish, we have another small issue. Mention it about the quality education. This private institution, some of them, people maybe they're speaking outside there, they are not originally registered, clearly registered. They open an institution, they take students, maybe after 6 months, no student, no school, everything has just been closed. How can students know that the institution they are going to register, they are taking the children is a safe institution?
Currently, you cannot run a TVET institution without proper registration and licensing. In fact, the controls are very severe, such that in cases you will find that the TVET authority will license you, and the examiner or the regulator will also want to know what you are doing. Just recently, giving you an example of ourselves, we were being re-inspected by the Kenya Nutrition and Dietitians Institute for renewal of our license as an institution, because they have to know who is training this program, especially when there is a regulator, and therefore the terms and the conditions you are training have to conform with what they have as the policy. Now, anybody taking their child to school, whether private or TVET, of course, private, you need to check their status of accreditation. And by just going to the TVET website, you will be able to see who is approved to train in Kenya. Number two, of course, in every institution you visit, you will obviously, most likely, find yourself in the reception. If they have not displayed any licenses from TVET, they have not displayed any other such permits, then you start asking questions, and you have a right as a client, as the student, to ask their proof of status, so that then people don't just tell you by word of mouth. Let them show you this is our license to operate, and so we are accredited. Let them tell you which exams they have been administering and who is administering them. Anybody who is going to tell you, here we run our own exams and we issue you with our own certificates, then I think that is the first sign that you are being duped into something that is not going to work for you. Even if it is that cosmetology program, you have to be assessed, you have to be examined by a body that is recognized. So at the end of the day, I think what I would say is any parent out there who wants to go check for a school for their son or daughter, just confirm that the institution you are talking to can confirm to you and verify that they have a document from TVET, that's the Technical and Vocational Training Authority, and if they have another exam or they have another kind of authorization, there is a document to prove that. Yeah, so there is no in between where you say, yeah, this institution is good, it's training, but it doesn't have authorization, because the evidence is there. They have all, they have the website from TVET where you can log in and check, or even you don't have to log in, just visit the site and check who is registered to offer which programs in the country. So, of course, there can be people who manipulate the system, but that can be countered by such checks and verifications.
The last one is we have students who committed suicide because they feel they failed in the exam, maybe Form 4 exam or Class 8 exam, and they feel that's the end of their life. As an expertise in the issue of TVET and education, maybe what is your message to such students and such parents? Some of the parents are willing to take their kids back to school, and it's just a hard time for them. What will be your message?
I will say one statement, which I believe is what and how we should all perceive those students who maybe even didn't make it to the university. We are all different. We are all differently created and empowered, even in terms of our potential in life. And TVET, what TVET does is it creates a global career for the learner, unlike possibly the university in some cases where you may find that the learning that takes place and the training may not necessarily apply. TVET is life. That's what people say. And I agree with that statement, because even in this office as we are, there is nothing here we can say that is not produced by TVET. Whether it's our clothes, fashion and design, whether it's the chair, carpentry, whether it's this building, masonry, whether it is the lights, electrical engineering. So basically TVET is our life. And when TVET is life, just like in a business, when you touch aspects of the regular life of people in whichever business you are in, you are likely to succeed. So I will say TVET creates a global career for the graduates, because you move to Uganda, they have life just like we have given an example here. They will need clothes, they will need electrical installations to be done in their homes, they will need food, and so that is really TVET. So I will say, let nobody think I need to go back to school, I need to improve my grades because I really have to go to the university. You might have that aspiration, that ambition. Is good to have ambition, but look at this alternative to the university. The TVET is the future. It is the way to industrialization, even as a country. It is how other countries globally have industrialized, and so we are in that position now as a country and even as individuals. So TVET is life. That's what I would say. And let's not always think it's low life because the university seems to be superior. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you and welcome also.